So up until this point in the game, we've kind of been accumulating all this just junk. Like, the stuff we bought way back in the early game. So, in Chapter 5 we bought some balancers and shit. Chapter 7 we got some mega mortars, got a laser sight here and there. And we've gotten work out of that stuff, but none of it's actually any good. In fact, it would be what I would call the first tier in a 3-tier system. So, at this point in the game, we could have upgraded all this shit already. We've already had access to the Mega Mortar 40s, the sonars. We did buy an antenna 2 for Minoru, but like, that was it. And Chapter 16 is pretty important because with the hangar update that comes with it, we now have access to all the 3rd tier like shit. So Mega Mortar 60s, turret scopes would be important, antenna 3, giga balancers, and we're gonna need a lot of that shit next chapter. But we're gonna not buy a whole lot of it right now because we have to actually wait for the next chapter's upgrade as well. So, sorry, the next chapter's hangar upgrade specifically, because we need to buy some of that shit as well. So for right now, we're just gonna buy only what we need to beat Chapter 16. So we bought 2 Mega Mortar 60s, one's for Yamato, one's for Janie. We also bought Janie a Quadra Drill, which is like the best weapon she can equip until late Badlands. So, and we need her to do a lot of damage this chapter. And we also gave Akane a turret scope. So Chapter 16 starts by immediately pissing me off. And I was just talking about how this game loves to throw us in all these like really big empty open spaces. And we start Chapter 16 in the middle of the fucking desert. And like there's just nothing around. On the left there's like some stag beetles. On the right there's a capsule, but I mean like one look at the mini map should tell you that everything that matters in this map is in the top right corner, and yet we're down here in the bottom left, neck deep in fucking sand. Like, why? Why did they decide to do that? I don't... Like, I've actually experimented with making strategy RPG maps myself. That's embarrassing and unrelated, so I'm not gonna go into it, but like, this is the first thing that you learn. Like, you don't do this. No one wants to slog through this shit. And like, it's sand. That's like the worst shit. And remember, like, we can skip most of it because we can just spider thread Sakuma all the way up here. But like, remember, we're not supposed to have spider thread yet. We got it from a crest. So the player is actually intended to like slog through this shit. I don't know. It's frustrating. I don't really understand. But contextually, Chapter 16 is just as dumb as it is physically. So, as you see on the left side here, there's Shoya and a bunch of stag beetles. What's actually happening is we found the location of the 3rd origin, and we're going there. But now we've gotten here, there's all these guardian guys, which is weird because there weren't any at the last origin, but whatever. So there's these guardian guys, and like, okay, yeah, we'll give you the origin of courage, but first you have to pass like our test of courage or whatever the fuck, and you need to kill us. So we're like, okay, we can do that. And then Shoya shows up. He's like, I'm gonna steal this origin from you guys, and we're like, okay, whatever. So what we should be doing, logically, is just do one thing at a time and fight Shoya and then do this test, but of course we're just gonna do all of it at once, because why not? So to talk about the actual chapter itself, Chapter 16 has the makings of a really hard chapter. Like, this chapter should be really, really hard, but fortunately we can do a couple things to make it way easier. Specifically, there's this colony that Mina was fighting, and there's also a second one on the right side. Inside these colonies there are 3 butterflies each, and we really don't want to fight butterflies in this game, like, ever. They're probably the single worst enemy type to fight, because not only they're really fast and like to evade and shit, but they're also, and I mentioned this way back, but they have this special ability that doubles the power of all healing cards that they use. So the enemy AI really likes to make these guys like clerics, like they'll just fly around and heal everybody, and it's a pain. So we don't want to fight these guys. And fortunately, Minoru was already in position with Ladybug Luck to kill the first one on the left with a Mantis Touch, so that one's not a big deal. This one on the right, though, was kind of a big deal, and I'll talk more about this later, but obviously what we did is we had Ganbei use a card called Termite Army, and that dealt some chip damage to the colony, so Janie had enough power to one-hit KO it with Beetlehorn, and her Quadra Drill and her Mega Mortar. And I'll talk more about that later. But to finish off with this chapter, there's really, like, that's actually really the gist of it. I mean, On the left here, there's a bunch of stag beetles, and we're gonna let Minoru and Blade and Raphael fight all these guys. They're not really a threat. They're just kind of like, they're kind of just there to waste your time, to be totally honest. And then there's this Mantis here. This Mantis actually attacks Janie, who's at full health, instead of Ganbei, who is basically dead. And I don't really understand at all why it does that. But it's cool because it lets Ganbei survive throughout this chapter, and he can now go down to the bottom and pick up the capsule that's on the right side of the screen. And in that capsule there is a power blade, which is a weapon upgrade for Shoya. And that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because we're basically just blowing Shoya up. So I'm pretty sure this is the developer's way of saying, like, don't worry, you're gonna get him back in your team eventually. But we don't actually ever care about Shoya, and we definitely don't care about the power horn. The only reason we're gonna pick it up is because we're gonna sell it next chapter for 80 bucks. And once again, we need all the money we can get next chapter, so it's just handy to have around. And then, yeah, so we're gonna have Janie take out those matches on the right. Yamato's gonna take the one on the left. And then Akane's gonna take out the 2 ladybugs in the center, and then all 3 of those guys are gonna converge at the top, and they're gonna help take out the 2 very dangerous centipedes. And then that's chapter 16. That's all of it. And so at this point, I usually, like, I've talked about the chapter, and I usually talk about some extra shit, but I'm starting to run out of extra shit. So if you'll just, like, bear with me for a few minutes, I'm gonna ramble very confusedly about LTC as a concept and unit balance thereof, I guess. Hopefully anything I say here makes sense, but if it doesn't, just know that none of it was really important, and I just want to talk about this shit because I think it's interesting, even if it doesn't really have any bearing on anything. So there's that colony on the right, and we kill that colony by having Ganbei chip damage with Tournament Army, and then Janie flew in and kill it with Beetlehorn. And I think that's fucking hilarious. Primarily because I can't think of a single card in this game that's shittier than Tournament Army. It is ungodly how bad it is. Like, what it does specifically is it damages every unit within a 3 square radius, including your allies, for 10% of their max HP. And the colony had 530 HP, so it did 53 damage. That's not awful, like it is, but it's useful. But like, Akane here has basically 260 HP. That would do 26 damage if I hit her with that. This is an unbelievably worthless amount of damage. Tournament Army is such shit, and yet it's like basically the key to beating this chapter. Like, I still actually can't fucking believe that we use Tournament Army in this run, and yet we do. And like, I fought really hard. Like, actually, that wasn't like, okay, it wasn't the first thing that came to my mind to deal with that colony. Because, like, I was like, okay, well, you gotta deal with this colony to beat this chapter in 6 turns. How am I gonna do that? I'm like, okay, so we need to get someone over there to actually attack it before it starts deploying butterflies. The only people on our team who can get there are Janie, Tsubasa, Ganbei, and Akane, and they all need a booster at least to get there. So the only person to actually get there with a weapon equipped is Janie. So it was up to Janie to do this. But obviously, even with her new weapon and her Mega Mortar 60, she can't secure the KO on that colony. So I was really freaking out. Like, how am I gonna actually get this to work? And I tried like going back and then giving Janie as much bonus experience as I could, and that wasn't working out. So I started like experimenting with different ways to get like Akane over there to maybe do more damage and shit, but it just wasn't working. And then eventually I figured out that I can just use Tournament Army, and man, that's so fucking funny. And that's kind of like the spirit, I guess, of this LTC run, and maybe LTC runs in general, in that like you just get to do some really crazy shit to solve problems that really aren't problems unless you're like imposing these dumb challenges on yourself like I am. Like, in a casual playthrough, why would you ever even consider doing this? Like, not only is it not important, but like, it just doesn't come up. It's just like, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is just, doing this LTC run has been a really cool experience. It's just been super interesting. It's just been one big puzzle, and sometimes you can solve it on like a as it comes sort of basis, but in times like these, like I said, I went all the way back and tried to feed Janie bonus experience, and I don't know, it's like it's one big puzzle made up of several smaller puzzles. And I played this game when I was 12, 13, I was not considering ever playing this game again. Because, like, why would I? But doing this LTC run is really refreshing, and it brought the game back to me in a whole new light. And really, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if you have a game like this, like, not like a strategy RPG or drone tactics, but just a game that you liked and have kind of fallen out of love with, maybe try doing something like this. Maybe not LTC, but something more game specific, like speedrunning or something, I don't know. It's up to you, but like, it's been cool. It's been really cool, and I encourage you guys to kind of try the same thing. And I guess one final note about that, because I did say that I wanted to talk about unit balance, so I guess I should do that. So basically all I wanted to say is, like, we use the shit out of Akane in this run. We get a lot of use out of Raphael, and Tsubasa has really fallen off, but she's still a key portion of the team, and that's really cool, because in a casual playthrough of this game, all you really care about, like, is you want to do the Badlands, and Badlands are all combat, so Akane doesn't have a place in your team, because she does not really in the running for top 8, and Raphael is, in fact, bottom 3 characters in the game. The only people who are worse than him are Shoya and Hiroto, and like Tsubasa, she's really bad right now. She actually has a special weapon that's only for her that we find in the Badlands, and with that weapon, she becomes a above average unit, but otherwise, like, she's bad. And so yeah, that's just kind of what my thoughts on the matter. I'm not really sure how to wrap up that ramble, so I'm gonna wrap it up by just stopping and coming back next time. Actually, next segment is interesting because it's entirely preparation for Chapter 17 because it takes so fucking long. So I will see you next time in the preparations for Chapter 17.